It has been a busy week for week 2 of the NAIA football schedule. Lots of games, more than 40. We'll talk about all of them tonight. And some weeks started their season this week, or excuse me, some teams started their season this week, and some teams went a different direction than where they were headed or seemed to be heading after week 1. Some good, some maybe not as good, and possibly corrections for week 3. We'll talk about all that and more here on College Football This Week. Let me stop and say first, you're awesome. I'm glad that you stopped by Midwest Sportsnet. We have so much to talk about, and let's do it by bringing in a friend right now. And we bring in this week's guest, Tom Kautz, who is the voice of the Benedictine Ravens. Tom, listen, it was a 1 versus 2 matchup, depending upon which poll. And since we sometimes talk about the NAIA F-ball poll here on Midwest Sportsnet, we like what Corey's doing out there in Florida. We'll talk about that poll because that's a nice way to build this one. Number 1 versus number 2, Grandview and Benedictine last week. It was a 27-24 victory for Grandview to open the season for the Vikings. Benedictine already had a game in the books. Really quickly, tell me what you thought about the game. What was it like being there?
It was fantastic being there. It was Chamber of Commerce weather up in Des Moines. I mean, we were talking 70, 72 degrees. Crystal clear skies, huge crowds for both teams, a really nice venue on the campus of Drake University because that's where Grandview's playing its home games this season, apparently. And, you couldn't have asked for a better situation to have a game between a couple of teams who are not only 1 and 2 in the nation, if you're looking at that poll, but also fellows in the Heart of America Athletic Conference, although in the North and South divisions respectively. So it had all of that. The pageantry was there, the cheerleaders, the dance teams, the parents were there in great numbers. It was all you would have wanted.
That is fantastic to hear, and we love to hear that, talking about NAIA football every single week. And I encourage all the fans to go out and watch because it's generally going to be worth your dollar to get in and watch what could be the last bastion of college football in its purest form in NAIA football. And then, Tom, I know that you're the voice of the Ravens, but generally we talk about the team that wins first. So let's talk about Grandview a little bit there. Corey Wood with a 34-yard field goal with 4:24 left. That proved to be the game winner. He was 2 for 2 on the afternoon. And Jackson Waring led a solid and a steady offense. Now, his numbers may have been workmanlike, maybe not the stellar numbers that we've been used to seeing from Jackson Waring, but it's week 1, 13 for 22 passing, 162 yards, a couple of touchdowns, and he also had 9 carries as well. Talk about the Grandview Vikings and what they looked like.
Here's the deal. You come into the game, and this is the defending national champion, okay? They have won national championships before this. They're bringing back a roster full of experienced and good guys, quality players. They're going to be good. They're going to be a handful, and that's exactly what they were. They did the things that national champions who are starting their season at home in front of an excited home crowd are going to be expected to do. And it was a game that saw two teams. I mean, it was one of those nose-to-nose and toe-to-toe games, a scoreless opening quarter. And ultimately, Grandview takes a 1-score lead in at halftime. And then at the end of the game, I've just got to tell you, Joy, what Grandview did that maybe impressed me the most is what I expect out of good teams. Late in the game, you're trying to hang on to a lead. You have the football and you control it. They put together in the fourth quarter a phenomenal 17-play, 9-minute and 37-second possession, drove down the field, didn't score a touchdown, but got close enough to kick a field goal that ultimately was the deciding number. I mean, that is what really good teams do, and that's how they pulled it off. And so hats off to them. They were, as they say, they were what we thought they were.
That phrase has taken on a life of its own in the last 15, 20 years. That's been something, but it's effective and it works. All right, then from Benedictine's perspective, this is a team that's already picked up a win over an incredible Morningside team that we think will be up there at the top as the season goes on all the way through. Jackson Dooley, his numbers maybe a little bit more to speak about there. Obviously, he'd want the win, but 24 for 39, 324 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, but he had a couple of interceptions as well.
That was the difference in the ball game. And Grandview did, again, what good teams do. They took advantage of those opportunities with the ultimately 3 Raven turnovers, 2 interceptions, and 1 fumble in the ball game. That was what really turned the tide in the contest. And for Benedictine, playing good ball clubs, you alluded to it. This is nothing that they're unaccustomed to. You go back to the end of last season, first playoff game at number 8 Texas Wesleyan. Then you go to Indiana and play number 3 Indiana Wesleyan. Then you go to Florida and play number 1 Kaiser and lose by 2 at the end of the game. You start this year with number 3 in the nation and win, and then you play the current national champion, the number 1 team, and lose by 3. So Benedictine knows how to play good teams.
Absolutely, they do. You know, Tom, there were a couple of wide receivers, by the way, that had stellar afternoons too. Isaiah Toki for Grandview, 9 catches, 96 yards, 2 touchdowns, including the initial score opening out the game. And then Tanner Zimmerman for the Ravens, 5 catches, 97 yards. He also had a couple of receiving touchdowns too. By the way, Isaiah Toki, the most unique way I've ever seen the word Isaiah spelled. So that's really pretty cool in and of itself. But receivers that had a pretty good afternoon too.
Isaiah was the difference maker for Grandview. Okay, their ground game was okay. You know, they had 141 yards rushing the ball, and the pass game was there when they needed it. And when they needed it, Toki was the guy they brought in. He delivered every time. It just seemed like if they needed a pass and a completion, they would go to him and he would come through. He was absolutely fantastic in like 96 yards and a couple of touchdowns on the afternoon. He was really good. For Benedictine, they also had a 2-touchdown receiver, and that is their big tight end, Tanner Zimmerman. I call him TZ. Where's number 4? 6'5". And you think tight ends aren't fast. He had a 60-yard reception, outran the secondary coverage to the other end of the field because at 6'5", you are 2 strides and you're to another 5-yard marker. You know what I mean? You are flying. He's a loper going down the field. And so, yeah, he had a phenomenal day too. So it was great to see that.
You talked about the defense from Grandview, and I'd love to just I want to stay there just a little bit longer because as much as, you know, I often talk about what Jackson Waring does, and it's hard to overstate what Jackson Waring does. But the Grandview defense showed up big. You mentioned the interceptions being the key to the game. Is this a defense that puts them in a place to win a national championship again?
Here's the deal, Joey. I'm an old guy. It's always the defense that puts you in a place to win, and then it's always the offensive line that lets you score the points. Okay, I mean, it's just where I feel these games go, and it's what I feel is important. And when you've got, like, for Grandview, okay, you've got a guy like Jackson Filer. Okay, he is kind of the linchpin for this, and he's a young man, junior college national player of the year after his sophomore year, went to Iowa. Okay, so now you got a Big Ten guy who transfers into Grandview. That's probably going to help your defense, I'm going to guess, right? And he's a great athlete, and he's obviously a team leader out there. They look to him. They should look to him. You look to a guy like that, and you're lucky to have somebody who, when he's looked to, steps up and leads that defense, and he did that.
All right, last football question then. That is, we've talked about Grandview, but I know you have the Benedictine perspective. So what's the takeaway for Benedictine going into the next, week or two? Let's just talk about September alone. What's the takeaway for Benedictine now, 1-1?
I think that Benedictine comes out of this game certainly disappointed. Coach Osborne, his staff, they want to win. They prepare this team. They go in every Saturday expecting to win that game, like good coaching staffs are going to do, and they certainly are a great coaching staff. That said, they know that there are some things that they're going to clean up, and they know that they're playing a quality schedule. Now you got Graceland coming to Atchison. It Stars and Stripes Day at Wilcox Stadium on Saturday. And Graceland rolls up 71 points against William Woods last Saturday. Now, William Woods is a second-year team that's still looking for their institutional first win. So you take that a little into account. But for Benedictine, you know that you've got to come out every week and you got to be loaded. But I'm going to tell you, Joy, when it's all said and done, you're looking at BC, you're looking at Grandview. These are teams that are going to both be playing at Thanksgiving, okay? I'm just out. Put me on record right now.
All right. You are officially on record on college football this week as having said that. But I to be honest with you, Tom, I really don't think you went that far out on a limb. So I don't know that I don't think you need to be worried too much about that statement. We'll see how the rest of the season plays on. People want to listen to what?
It's a big solid limb.
It's a big solid limb. It is that, and I think you're pretty close to the base there. People who want to listen to Raven football, where do they find you this season?
Well, they will find us where they found us. We've been covering Benedictine football and basketball since 1952 at this radio station. I'm the second guy since 1952 to do play-by-play. My mentor, who taught me the ropes, and then I took over from him in 79. So that said, it's KAIR. If you're driving around 93.7 FM. If you're on the internet, it's KAIRFM.com, and there's a big old listen live button. And if you want to hook it to your phone or whatever, they've got the best new app, mscsports.net, and you just go to Care Radio and listen live, and it is available there. And we have alumni, fans, and friends and family from literally all over the planet. We've got people in Japan, and we've had former players who are in Sweden. We have people everywhere who enjoy Raven football, and we're glad to have them along and welcome them every week.
Well, rightfully so. They should enjoy it. They should definitely enjoy the broadcast. And you've had someone from the state of Oklahoma listen to your call before, too. And I tell you do a good job. So it's a privilege to get to have you on the broadcast tonight. And, sorry for your perspective for the loss. But, again, Ravens season far from over. And Tom has said they'll be playing football when Thanksgiving rolls around. Tom Kautz, thank you so much for taking time with us tonight, sir.
Joy, my pleasure. Anytime.
All right. That is Tom Kautz, who is the voice of the Benedictine Ravens, and I will let him go on a Sunday night because, he's got things to do. And we have more things to do right here on Midwest Sports Net. College football this week continues. Shout out to Dave Sellen, who's watching tonight, of course, with the Roll Stangs. Derek, let's go Jays. Rudolph, let's get it Bulldogs. Let us know from where you're watching tonight. We would appreciate that. And for whom you are cheering. Have a good idea about who some of those guys are cheering for. We're going to talk about the top 5 performances of the week, but it's going to be further into the broadcast because we have a lot of football to talk about from week 2, and we're going to hit the entire schedule tonight, talk about some of the winners, maybe some of the losers, and just go from there. And again, shout out to Tom Kautz, who, by the way, Tom, you don't have to stick around the green room, man. You can watch this wherever you want to. You're free, but thank you so much for being a part of the broadcast. Then Thursday night's game, Valley City State on the road, taking on Augsburg, and this was an Ag Bowl game. Now, there were 2 games that could be listed as the Ag Bowl this week, and they were both played up in the upper plains of the United States. Valley City State, the 7th edition of the Ag Bowl for the Vikings. They're now 6-1. They defeated Augsburg, Division III Augsburg, 27-0. Joey Cave, 11 for 13 passing for 108 yards, 1 touchdown, 16 for 75 rushing, and he also had a rushing touchdown too. The thing about it is for Valley City State, this was crazy. 4 touchdowns though, made 1 PAT, missed 1 PAT, missed 2 or failed on 2 two-point conversions. So really just got the point after one time, 6 points apiece all the way after that, and some crazy things happening, but 27-0. That was the only Thursday night game. Let's move on to Saturday, and we're going to bounce around the country. So let's start with Kentucky Christian. Now 1-0 officially. The South Carolina Central Christian game not necessarily counted as an NAIA win. So they're 1-0 now, taking on Division III. Another non-NAIA school there. Division III, Brevard College, 0-1, 41-20. Brevard went up 20-0 in the first quarter, and the Knights said, that's about all of that. Came back to tie it at 20 all at the half, and then 21 points after that. Jackson Wasick, 22 of 31 for 229 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, had a pick. He also had a rushing touchdown on 13 carries for 96 yards. And Kentucky Christian's Deshaun Webster had 11 tackles, 4 tackles for loss, including 1 sack, and forced a fumble as well. All right, as we move on through, and Charles, let's bring that up really quickly. Charles says, congratulations to Coach Stayback at Graceland. As we mentioned, Graceland just a moment ago, first win as the head coach, scored in all three phases. CJ Brooks, 5 touchdown passes in the first half. And we will get to Graceland a little bit later on. Thanks, Charles, for watching tonight. We appreciate that. Moving on through the NAI, St. Thomas goes to 1-0 on the season as it's a 55-7 win over Fort Lauderdale. Definitely a favorable matchup for St. Thomas there. Keely Watson, 12 of 20 passing for 151 yards, 3 touchdowns, no pick. Jalen Thomas, 2 catches for 25 yards, 2 rushes for 45 yards, and 2 punt returns for 95 yards. He gets his touchdown in the special teams area of the game, not through the air, not by land, but on special teams. A 66-yard punt return for a touchdown for Jalen Thomas. Big game for him. And St. Thomas now 1-0 on the season. Campbellsville versus Weber International. And the Warriors for WIU pick up the win against Division I program last week. It was the defense that got it done. Not quite as much offense in that game, and that's really what we saw right here. Not as much offense against Campbellsville. Jet Ingle still in as QB1 right now. Jagger Gillis, we have a good idea we're going to see him again later in the season, but for the moment, Jet Ingle is in, 22 of 32 passing for 231 yards. He threw 2 touchdown passes, but he also threw 4 interceptions on the night. Trey Bass with the big night for the Tigers. The leading rusher and receiver, 7 carries for 145 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns, 2 receptions for 57 yards, and a receiving touchdown as well. For Weber International, Marquez Griffin had the big night, 3 tackles, and also a 55-yard pick 6 to put some points on the board for the Warriors. Campbellsville gets another win for 2025. How about Union Commonwealth getting the first win in the Boston Bryant era? 24-0 over Thomas. The Bulldogs going to 1-1 now. Taji Jackson, 27 carries for 145 yards. Union had 4 touchdowns. And again, it's just one of those nights where you're just not getting things to fall. Had 3 2-point conversions fail and missed an extra point. 6 touchdowns, no conversions to follow. It was just a weird weekend when it came to that. Siena Heights in the farewell tour started off strong and actually got up big in this game. DJ Young opened the season with a 92-yard kickoff return for a touchdown. The point after failed, and that proved to be costly. They scored 20 points in the first quarter, should have been 21 right there, and after that, St. Francis came back. The Cougars get touchdown, ultimately going up 21-20, and it was just a good comeback win for St. Francis. The Saints for Siena Heights start the season at 0-1 in the farewell tour. Kulka, 25 of 40 passing, 211 passing yards, a touchdown, and a pick. Had 7 carries for a net negative 27 yards, but he picked up a couple of rushing touchdowns too, including the game-winning 5-yard score with 6.5 minutes left in the game. Taylor goes to 1-1 following the overtime loss last week. 45-27 over St. Francis of Illinois. First win over a ranked team or a team receiving votes in the NAIA poll and rankings since 2016. Taylor also forced 4 fumbles and recovered them all. Had 2 interceptions too, so it was the defense really for the Trojans to get things done. And you see Damon Hockett, 9 for 25 passing, just 36% through the air, picked up 160 yards, had a couple of touchdowns thrown, but also threw 2 interceptions. Nathan Parker, the ground game for the Trojans, you know that's always going to be strong. 20 carries, crossed the century mark at 108, and had 3 rushing touchdowns. For the Fighting Saints, Nathan Mall, 19 for 33 passing, 284 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, and threw an interception as well. He found Jake Friddle 5 times for 87 yards through the air and had 2 receiving touchdowns. Taylor to 1-1 now. St. Francis loses the season opener. Defiance now 2-0 on the year. The Yellow Jackets trying to make some noise now that they're a part of the NAI. A win, doubling up Judson 40-20. The Eagles fall to 0-2 on the season. For Defiance, it's the first 2-0 start since 2001. Ethan Thanavong, a freshman, and try saying that many times, 17 for 21 passing, better than 80% through the air, 299 passing yards, and a couple of touchdowns. Also carried the ball 12 times for 48 yards and had a score on the ground as well. Caleb Thompson, 3 catches, 103 yards receiving, 2 of those receiving touchdowns. He also recovered a fumble as well. For Judson, Marcus Freeman, not the Notre Dame coach, Marcus Freeman, the quarterback, 27 of 40 passing, 231 yards through the air, a couple of touchdowns, no picks. And Nick Curry for the Eagles had 14 tackles on the night. Ottawa picks up its first home opening win since 2020 and does so with an 8-point victory over St. Mary in KCAC play. The Braves are now 1-1 on the season. St. Mary 0-2. And we'll give a shout out really quickly to Dave, because Dave says, hey, the kids came over for dinner. Dave, I completely understand. I have 5 kids, saw 2 of them this weekend up in the city, and 4 grandkids. And when the kids and or grandkids come over, you got to stop and take care of that. So we'll see you on the other side. We'll give a shout out to Morningside for you when the Stangs roll around. Also a big shout out to Dave, friend of the channel right there. Back then to the action as we talk about Ottawa and St. Mary. Luke Edwards, 27 for 43 passing, 406 passing yards. That's the high water mark on the week. 1 touchdown, 1 pick, carried the ball 9 times for 27 yards and a touchdown. The Anthony Curtis for the Braves, 9 catches, 178 yards receiving, and that touchdown that went through the air. For St. Mary, Eric Covington, 17 for 31 passing, just 251 yards passing, 3 touchdowns through the air, no picks. Michael Gozana, 6 receptions, 131 yards, and caught 2 of those touchdowns. Cameron Smith, he was the big guy on the ground again, 20 carries, 160 yards. Yes, that is 8 yards per carry and 1 rushing touchdown. Ottawa again with the win. Montana Tech at Carroll. This one is a big one from the Frontier Conference. And the Ore Diggers are still undefeated on this young season, 2-0 now, as Montana Tech gets the win over Carroll. The Saints fall to 1-1. Montana Tech opens it up with a couple of Wykeese Johnson touchdowns. And then Jarrett Wilson, for Montana Tech, got the start, but still there was a lot of Jake Casagranda. You know what? I'm just telling you, Asher gave me the go-ahead on this, and I'm still working with that name, Casagranda. You saw both quarterbacks through this game, though. Wilson's for 7 for 9 passing for 81 yards and a touchdown. Casagranda, 3 of 7 passing for 42 yards. No touchdowns, no picks. But Coach Sampson was able to use his quarterbacks throughout the game. You got a couple of quarterbacks that were there at the very end, even coming down before last week's season opener in the 2 deep, one or the other. You knew you were going to see both of them. You saw them both throughout the game. This could be a 2 QB system for Montana Tech over the course of this year, because if you're throwing out 2 quarterbacks in games as big as the Montana Western one was last week and the Carroll one is this week, then you know that you have some faith in both of those young men to take the helm and make something happen. Wykeese Johnson, we mentioned, 34 carries, 173 rushing yards, 3 rushing touchdowns on the day. They were all big. Jace Thompson, 7 tackles, and had a blocked kick in this one for the Diggers. For Carroll, Caden Hewitt, 16 of 29 passing for 166 yards, 3 touchdowns through a pick. He also carried the ball 16 times for 60 yards. So 16 completions, 16 carries. Big night for Hewitt. Also, Carson Ochoa, 3 catches for 66 yards for the big tight end for the Saints. And so, again, this game, not a divisional game in the Frontier Conference. Both teams still obviously in the hunt to take their division, but I say this is a big one to look at later on the season for Montana Tech. William Penn gets the win, 38-6 over Central Methodist. Christian Penning, the freshman who stepped in last week early on, is the starting quarterback this week. 19 for 30 passing, 285 yards, 3 touchdowns, just 1 pick. Destin Loring, again, a nice afternoon, 23 carries, 92 yards, had 2 rushing touchdowns for Central Methodist. Cristobal Salgado, 2 for 3 in field goal attempts. That accounts for all 6 points for the Eagles right there. His long was a 39-yarder. Friends, on the road, taking on Avila, 62-7. The Falcons go to 2-0 on the year. Avila falls to 0-2. Avila got a touchdown early after a fumble. Deuce Taylor then threw the ball to Seth Myers from 21 yards out. They score. They go up 7-0. And that was all on the scoreboard for the Eagles. It was all Falcons after that. For Friends, 12 different players had carries, 520 rushing yards on the day. And if you're doing the math at home, that means 1,105 rushing yards so far on the season for Friends, on an incredible pace. And at this point, if they just kept up this pace, didn't even go into the playoffs, which you'd have to think Friends is on a pace to make another playoff appearance, would set a new rushing record for the NAIA following last season's 53-51. Nick Cordova had the big day, or one of the two to have a big day for Friends. Again, 12 players to carry the ball. Cordova did it 9 times and had 120 rushing yards and a rushing touchdowns. Edarian Sykes, 6 carries, but he also had 120 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown. Michael Lopez had 4 carries for 72 yards and 3 rushing touchdowns. And we can't forget Cavante Baker, 8 carries, 31 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns as well, and completed the 1 pass he threw for 5 yards. For Avila, Kashawn Graham, 8 carries for 34 yards on the day. It was a passing touchdown to put points on the board for the Eagles, but it was all Friends pretty much all the time after that opening score. Let's stop for a moment, and I want to give a shout-out to Sean. So, Sean, really quickly, thank you for being a part of the broadcast and making the quick statement there. Great interview. Tom Kautz is a fantastic broadcaster, and we were talking before we went on the air just about a few things about broadcasting. For me, this is year 25. I've had the opportunity to be doing this since January of 2001. I just praise God every day for the chances I get to do these things and be a part of sports. Tom's been doing it much, much longer than I have, and I'll let him tell you how long, because we're going to have him again come on the channel and just visit about a few things like that. So I won't give away his secrets there, but just to let you know, he's been broadcasting for a year or two. And in light of that, let me say thank you for being a part tonight. It's a great community here on Midwest Sports Net. College Football This Week, one of the shows that we do here. And I just encourage you, thank you very much for being a friend of the channel as well. If you're watching this tonight, let us know from where you're watching and who you are cheering for. Maybe, let us know what you expect from next week's game. We'll talk a little bit more about next week later on in the week. But in the meantime, I would encourage you, if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please do. And we'll just keep on moving right now. Now, this one takes me to something I talked about yesterday on Midwest Sports Saturday, which was in Oklahoma City. And we were at the volleyball match between Texas Wesleyan and the host Oklahoma City University Stars. For that one, a 4-set win for Texas Wesleyan ultimately in that. But for Midwest Sports Saturday, talking about some bets, if there were lines on things in Vegas, and we need to start looking into what we might call some of those lines, we'll put together some bets. And as even starting on Thursday night with our weekly preview show, I was talking about the fact that I thought in this game, Vegas might have put an over-under at 38.5 points. Dakota Wesleyan at Dordt. This game, I thought Vegas might put a 38.5 over under there. And you know what? I said I would probably take the under. I was wrong. And I was wrong in a big, big way. Dordt wins 66-7. And not only that, the defenders had 45 points at the half. That's right. Dordt on top of Dakota Wesleyan, 45-0 at the half. Noah Strickfaden, who won the job for Coach Penner, 12 for 19 passing in his debut for 340 yards through the air, 3 touchdowns, no picks, had 6 carries as well for 32 yards and a rushing touchdown. Daniel Dickerson, 14 carries for 72 yards on the day for the defenders, a pair of rushing touchdowns himself. The defenders had 5 rushing touchdowns on the day. Elliott Beal, 6 catches, 201 receiving yards for Dordt. Just an offensive explosion to go along with a defense that is, quite solid itself, holding the Tigers to just 7 points. Dakota Wesleyan led by Jed Jensen, 14 of 28 passing, 50% on the day, 113 passing yards, had a touchdown and threw 2 picks as well. Dordt with a big-time win to open the season. Midland goes to 1-1, as does Hastings. The Warriors get the 24-9 victory over the Broncos. It's the second straight year for Midland to win the Watchorn-McLaughlin Trophy, which is the trophy these two teams play for, honoring former coaches from either side. And Midland went up 10-9 going into the fourth quarter and then scored a couple more touchdowns from there. Brody Johnson, 12 of 22 passing, just 95 yards, did throw a touchdown and had no interceptions, 5 for 10 rushing and a touchdown as well. Midland also led by Tyson Dankert, 23 carries, crossed the century mark at 106 with a rushing touchdown too. The Midland defense shut down the Hastings rush that was a big part of last week's game for the Broncos. 63 yards on the ground for Hastings in this one. And Dalton Armbruster, who is one of two players who rushed for more than 100 yards last week, had 9 carries for just 43 yards to lead the Broncos this week. Jarrett Sinek, 15 of 27 passing, 209 passing yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 pick. Let's go to Morningside, because if Dave were still watching, and he may pick up right here, he would say, go Stangs. And the Stangs did, in fact, go. They won the battle for the saddle in Sioux City, going to 1-1 on the year. Briarcliff also falling to 1-1 on the year, 58-17. Pretty much all Morningside all the time, except for when Brock Saya had the ball. Now, let's talk about this for a moment. The Mustangs put up 708 yards of total offense on the day. Zach Chevalier, 16 for 23 through the air, 370 passing yards, 4 touchdowns through the air as well, and just 1 interception. Max Huff, 13 carries, 192 yards of rushing, 2 rushing touchdowns. And Drew Sellen, 4 catches for 184 yards, 1 receiving touchdown too. And if you're doing the math on that one, yes, that is 46 yards per reception for Drew Sellen. Morningside has some triplets right now, and you're looking at Chevalier, Huff, and Sellen, and those are some big-time names. I mentioned Brock Sy a little bit earlier. How about his afternoon? 30 for 42 passing, and they are not afraid to let him throw the ball. 352 passing yards. You know, against another team with a quarterback not named Chevalier, that number might be the big number of the day, but still second most passing yards through 1 passing touchdowns, didn't throw a pick. Monty Flairme, 11 catches, 143 yards receiving there. And by the way, Morningside's Cade Merriman and Briarcliff's Kyle Gibson each had 10 tackles. So want to see how Coach Ledege's team recovers from this one. Morningside now has won 23 of 23 meetings between the two schools. Out to the Frontier one more time. College of Idaho getting the win over Rocky Mountain. 37-20 was the score. The Yotes had a balanced attack. 484 yards of total offense, 238 through the air, 246 on the ground. Caden Young, another good afternoon. 23 of 35 passing for 238 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks. Also carried the ball 17 times for 111 yards. Torrey Watkins, the big day receiving those Caden Young passes, 10 catches, 71 yards for him. For Rocky Mountain, Trent Novak is back. Unfortunately, it was a loss for the Battling Bears in Novak's return, but he had a stellar afternoon, though. 19 of 31 passing, 336 passing yards, 3 touchdowns thrown to no interceptions. Darius Haskin caught 2 of those touchdown passes, 6 catches on the day for 207 yards receiving. And Dylan Dynes had 12 tackles for the Battling Bears on the day as well. Mayville State dropped off a little bit from week 1. The Comets, with 492 yards rushing in week 1, had just 162 yards of total offense in week 2. Falling to Division III Concordia on the road, the Cobbers, that's right, look it up. Anyway, moved to 1-0 with a 17-6 win over the Comets. I'm still a fan of Comets. That's going to work. Landon Olson had the big day, and you don't talk about big numbers that much in this one for the Comets. Moving to that option offense, not able to get much going. 15 carries for 66 yards for Landon Olson. Really the high point of the day for the Comets. Now at 1-1, so we'll see how they turn around as they go back into Frontier Conference crossover play before the divisional play starts. Division II, Clark Atlanta and Florida Memorial, 17-12. This game was suspended at the half last year with a tie, and it was fought close in this one. Division II Atlanta, Clark Atlanta with a 5-point victory over Florida Memorial in this one. For Clark Atlanta, Zy McDonald, 11 for 15 passes. He had a 50-yard touchdown run, too. Proved to be enough for the win. For Florida Memorial, and this is a team that's 0-2 right now, but I don't think you can look past them, and I don't think anyone in the Sun Conference is going to look past Florida Memorial. Fernando Genti, 11 carries for 59 yards, a rushing touchdown. Nigel Osborne, 12 carries for 51 yards, a rushing touchdown, too. The two losses for FMU to Reinhardt and D2 Clark Atlanta. It's an 0-2 team, but it has to be one of the better 0-2 teams in the country right now. Here's another team that's 0-2, Montana State Northern, and the Lights are yet to score this year. Montana Western shut them out 52-0 in a Frontier Conference crossover game. The Bulldogs moved to 1-1 now in the season. Michael Palandri, 28 of 34 passing for 386 yards. 82.3% completion. Wow. 4 touchdowns, no picks. Also had 6 carries for 7 yards, but 2 touchdowns on the ground as well. The Bulldogs also had Jonathan Kirkley with 7 catches, 111 receiving yards, and a touchdown catch. Eli Norris, just 8 catches this time, still crossed the century mark with 103 receiving yards and a touchdown catch. For Northern, Ashton Platt, 6 for 9, passing for 23 yards. And here's where you get a statistical oddity. Platt had 23 yards passing. His long completion of the day was 24 yards. So he had one pass completed for 24 yards. The other completed passes were for a combined -1 yard. Wow. Anyway, just the numbers not falling for the Lights right now, and MSU Northern at 0-2 on the year. Rio Grande also 0-2 to start 2025, and the newly minted Red Storm football team had a tough go, even at home on this one, taking on Georgetown. The Tigers now 2-0 on the year. Justice Burnham entered the game at the very end of the first quarter, taking over for Garrig Slewnaker, and he was 17 for 27, 239 yards passing on the day, 3 touchdowns thrown. Guy Bailey is the new featured back, it looks like, through the first 2 games, as Darius Neal looks to not be on the roster for the Tigers right now and seems to be shopping his wares on social media. So we'll see what happens with all of that. Bailey, 12 carries for 86 yards, 1 rushing touchdown on the day. The Tigers with a 48-point victory. For Rio Grande, Jaden Cartwright had 16 carries for 34 yards. Graceland, this was mentioned a little bit earlier. Charles Brooks pointed this out in the chat. 71-28. The Yellow Jackets get a season-opening win, go to 1-0. William Woods falls to 0-2, a Hart Conference crossover matchup. Gerald Monroe scored on a 70-yard touchdown pass on the opening play from scrimmage, as Coach Stayback told his team they want to win the day, and that's exactly what they did, this time by 43 points over the Owls. C.J. Brooks, the transfer from Bethune-Cookman, 12 for 18, passing on the day for 199 yards through the air, threw 5 touchdowns, no interceptions on the day. And I'm sure that CJ enjoyed this one a lot more than his former team. Bethune, well, fell to Miami in Division I play 45-3. So I'm sure he was enjoying this one a whole lot more. Graceland's also Javon Minor, 21 carries, 176 rushing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. Did I mention Gerald Monroe? I think I did. Just 5 catches, 123 yards for 2 receiving touchdowns. He also had a touchdown pass, a 57-yard touchdown pass for Monroe, so he accounted for 3 touchdowns on the day. Nice job for Gerald Monroe right there. Missouri Valley 1-0 on the season as the Vikings defeated Clark 28-24. Moved to 1-0. The Pride fall to 0-2. Clark took the lead 24-14 on a blocked punt by Jaden Warren, 60 yards for the touchdown in the fourth quarter. Missouri Valley, though, followed with 2 rushing touchdowns on back-to-back possessions and rallied. 28-24 for the win. Silas Morton was named the starting quarterback, and, Tom L. Staples was named the starting quarterback once again for the Vikings. 13 for 24, 116 yards passing, 1 touchdown, and 1 pick. Silas Morton had the big day on the ground, 17 carries for 96 yards and 3 rushing touchdowns. For Clark, Carson Estrada, 24 for 46, 318 passing yards. He was actually 24 for 48 because he completed 50% of his passes. He had to go ahead to throw the ball through 2 touchdown passes, but 3 interceptions as well. One of the interceptions led to the final Missouri Valley score, and the other one was on the final drive, which was into Missouri Valley territory, and Clark was trying to take the lead. So those 2 of those 3 interceptions especially proved to be costly for the Pride. D2 Western Oregon, 27. NAI Southern Oregon, 7. Longtime rivals. They meet once again. Southern Oregon's lone score came in the 4th quarter. This pretty much was a Western Oregon game throughout. For Southern Oregon, Dom Montiel, 27 for 45 passing, 248 passing yards. No touchdowns, but 3 interceptions. It was a rough day for the Raiders. For Southern Oregon, Rieger Sayer, a junior, a hometown boy from Ashland, came in for Montiel in the 4th quarter. He led the rushing attack for the night. 5 carries for 26 yards, did have that touchdown. Indiana Wesleyan, 41. St. Xavier, 3. Arjun Lothi, he may not have had the numbers he wanted in week 1 against Kaiser. Get some bigger numbers here. 27 of 50 passing, 355 passing yards, through 2 touchdowns, through 2 picks as well on the night. Total offense, Indiana Wesleyan, 432 yards of total offense. St. Xavier, just 189. But just a 6-second differential in time of possession for both teams. So you have to look at that and say Indiana Wesleyan was much more effective, just about a 2-to-1 or better than a 2-to-1 ratio right there. Warner at Stetson, and the Royals fall to the Hatters as Stetson Division I gets a win this week over an NAIA program, 59-13. Stetson over Warner in this one. Jeremiah Johnson, 12 of 25 passing for 95 yards. And he threw no touchdowns, no interceptions in this one. Michael Ryan had the lone touchdown on the night, 8 for 29 rushing for Warner in this one. Stetson picks up its first win of the season. Former Bethel University coach Mike Jasper at Stetson getting the win there. His first win of his tenure there. Mount Marty going to 2-0 now on the year at Waldorf. It was a 35-10 victory. Mount Marty has won 8 of the last 13 games for the Lancers. Rugby Riken, 11 of 19 passing, 130 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, 7 carries for 50 yards as well. And Malachi Hartz for the Lancers, 18 carries for 89 rushing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. You know, I talk about the fact that you're awesome, and I really, really much, very much believe that. You are awesome, and I appreciate what you mean to Midwest Sportsnet, to college football this week in particular, but to Midwest Sportsnet in general, and you're what makes this a community. So I appreciate you coming by the channel. I would just encourage you, please take the time to subscribe, join the channel if you will too. That's a part of what helps us grow and do the things that we do. We take this channel on the road regularly. We did it twice this past week, going to Southeastern football game and an Oklahoma City volleyball game. We are headed to Texas this coming Saturday, September 13th, and we're going to be there for a full day. We have football to cover, volleyball to cover. Midwest Sports Saturday will be in Waxahachie, Texas at Nelson University on Saturday, and I encourage you to watch that because we're going to have a lot for you on that Saturday. Back to college football this week as Marion picks up a win, the first win of the season for the Knights, and they do it in strong fashion over Lawrence Tech, 35-21 over the Blue Devils. Key LaBelle, 29 carries for 187 rushing yards and 3 rushing touchdowns, and LaBelle is now 3rd on the all-time Marion rushing list. He's had 8 100-yard games in his time. And that's of note because Marion has had some strong running backs over the years, and for LaBelle to be at least at number 3, who knows where he's going to wind up when it's all said and done. Tristan Polk, 14 of 23 passing, 128 yards through the air, 2 touchdowns, no picks. Jake Reichard caught 8 of those balls thrown his way for 82 yards and had 2 receiving touchdowns. Ryan Schuster was named the starting quarterback for Lawrence Tech. 15 for 26 passing, 126 passing yards, a touchdown through 2 picks, but he did have 20 carries as well and a touchdown on the ground. Cumberland's with the big-time win over Bluefield, 66 points, 66-12. Cumberland's with the win over the Rams. Most points in a game for Cumberland's since 2019. That's when they put up a 98 spot on Union. Drew Gregg, 12 of 19 passing for 128 yards. He didn't have to do that much in this one. 3 touchdowns through 1 pick, had 6 carries for 40 yards too. Juan Bullard Jr., 11 carries for 155 yards and 1 rushing touchdown. For Bluefield, Seth Burnham, a 39-yard interception touchdown. The pick 6 opened the game, but after that, it was pretty much all Cumberland's all the time. Staying with the Mid-South team, how about Lindsey Wilson picking up the second win of the year for the Blue Raiders? 37-3, the final score there, but they had to make some adjustments as it went on. 37 points by the third quarter, and Ave Maria got that field goal midway through the fourth quarter. This one was decided, but it really needed to be for the Blue Raiders. Tate Rice, a sophomore from Manchester, Kentucky, stepped in as Pryor Lamb went out in the first quarter, and Rice 17 for 21 passing, 249 passing yards. Nice night for the sophomore. 4 touchdowns thrown, no picks. So Coach Kleckler got everything he needed from his backup quarterback in this, and we'll see how this plays out coming into next week. Devontae Saunders led in both the rushing category and the receiving category for the Blue Raiders. 14 carries for 59 yards, 14 receptions for 85 yards, and had a receiving touchdown too. Byron Kirkland Lundy with a 90-yard kickoff return for a touchdown in all of that. Ave Maria, as Coach Patterson has moved over to call the plays for the offense, saw Logan Howard with a 7 for 12 passing night, just 83 yards through the air. He carried the ball 11 times for 56 yards as well. Cumberland gets a big win over Reinhardt. This is an out-of-conference matchup, and this is one that, again, we might look back on a little bit later on. Cumberland 30, Reinhardt 18. Cumberland trailed 12-10 at the half, but opened the third quarter with a touchdown drive, and the fourth quarter with a drive that was forced to punt, but then the punt was fumbled and recovered for a touchdown. And so after trailing 12-10, Cumberland goes up 24-12. Daniel Smith had an interception pick 6 for 39 yards out to seal it with 1:40 remaining in the fourth quarter as the Eagles were trying to drive. Cumberland again 30-18 the victory. The defense earned 4 sacks on quarterback Taylor Jackson over the course of the day for the Phoenix. Jacob Cornejo, 21 carries for 115 rushing yards, and quarterback Zach Holtzclaw, one of 2 quarterbacks named Holtzclaw in the NAIA this year. I know, just an interesting stat. Holtzclaw 8 for 17 passing for 99 yards through a touchdown and a pick. Cannon Johnson had that fumble recovery in the end zone that put Cumberland up 24-12. He also had 10 tackles to lead the way for his team, 3.5 tackles for loss, including 2 sacks. So a good night for Cannon Johnson. For Reinhardt, Taylor Jackson, we mentioned he was sacked 4 times, 18 for 42 passing, 178 passing yards, 1 touchdown through an interception as well. Mid-America Nazarene, the Pioneers go to 2-0 on the year in the Coach Cordova era, now 2-0. Culver Stockton 1-1 as the Pioneers win 47-28 over the Wildcats. Mid-America Nazarene went up 24-0 and led 27-21 in the third quarter and then took it home. 500 yards of total offense on the number. Culver Stockton, though, ran only 48 offensive plays on the night. An interesting number there. Drew Miller for Mid-America Nazarene, 21 of 31 passing, 288 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, had 4 carries for 19 yards and a touchdown as well. Ion Carter, another big night for the receiver for the Pioneers, 8 catches, 131 receiving yards, 2 receiving touchdowns. For Culver Stockton, Liam Thornton, 10 of 26 passing for 214 passing yards, 2 touchdowns. He also threw a pick. And Kyle Dixon, 4 catches, 132 receiving yards, 2 receiving touchdowns. He's one of those receivers that you just need to watch out for him over the course of the season. He'll put up some big numbers. Evangel is now 21-2 all-time as a member of the KCAC, 51-14 over Sterling. Evangel 2-0 on the year, Sterling 0-2 on the year, 678 yards of total offense. That was nearly a school record, But the rushing yards on the night proved to be a school record, 412 of them. Eric Williams led the way in that category, 23 carries for 163 yards, 3 rushing touchdowns. He also had 2 receptions for 68 yards and a receiving touchdown. Reed Potts, the quarterback for the Valor, 16 of 22 passing, 263 yards. That touchdown that he threw to Eric Williams, he didn't throw any picks on the night. Kyle Cummings also had a big night as a part of the backfield, 14 carries, 125 rushing yards, 1 rushing touchdown. For Sterling, Rockland Baptista, 10 of 25 passing for 214 yards through an interception on the night. He did find Ryan Stuckey 4 times for 157 receiving yards. So a big night for Evangel. This one could be considered an upset. And I think if you're Peru State, well, you know what? You may not think it's an upset. Proud of your team, but I'm going to go on record saying it is. Baker was a ranked team in the preseason rankings, and Peru State lost in week 1 to Panhandle State from Oklahoma and didn't score a touchdown. Put up 31 on Baker, though, on Saturday, a 31-17 victory. And although Baker outgained Peru State 377 to 280, Peru State was able to take advantage of the lack of offense for Baker and some big plays here and there. Jaquez Oliver picked off Truman Julesgaard late in the fourth quarter as Baker was trying to rally to tie things up. Picked it off at midfield and ran it in 51 yards for the score. That sealed the win for Peru State. For the Bobcats, C.J. Dixon, 13 of 22 passing for 169 passing yards, a touchdown, and 13 carries for 53 yards, 2 rushing touchdown as well for Dixon. Meanwhile, his counterpart on the Baker side, Truman Julesgaard, a very un-Truman Julesgaard-like night. 9 for 28 passing, just 187 passing yards. He threw 1 passing touchdown and 4 interceptions. And so with defense like that, Peru State able to capitalize and take advantage of the fact that, again, they were outgained by 97 yards on the night, still coming away with a 14-point victory. And we're going to say that is, in fact, an upset. Kansas Wesleyan moves to 2-0 on the year, 38-7, the victory over the Swedes in this one. Henry Ostad had a better night in week 2, 26 for 37 passing, 276 passing yards, 3 touchdowns. Will Wilcox caught 7 of those passes that were thrown for 127 receiving yards, 2 receiving touchdowns. For Bethany, Chase Heyer had 7 catches for 113 receiving yards and 1 receiving touchdown. And Malcolm Jones on the defensive side, 18 tackles on the night for the Swedes, 1 tackle for loss, and forced a fumble too. So a big night for Jones. Unfortunately, it came up on the losing end there for Bethany. Bethel, the Wildcats, taking on Division III Mary Hardin Baylor in the season opener, and Mary Hardin Baylor gets a 30-23 win. Now let's unpack it just a little bit. Bethel went up 13-0, but attempting the extra point, and we've already talked about this more than once tonight, attempting the extra point on that second touchdown, Mary Hardin Baylor got the block and ran it back for 2. So it's 13-2 now, and from that point it went back and forth. Bethel's new quarterback, Destin Chance, and I have said this name backwards and forwards. I think I've said Chance Destin. I think I've said Destin Chance. Remember this name, however you remember it, because I believe this Bethel team is going to make some noise this year, and he's going to be a part of it. A 7-point loss against a very good Division III team to open the season. The Wildcats are going to find a way back into this. Chance, by the way, 21 of 37 passing, 227 passing yard, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Also had a rushing touchdown on the night and a tackle. That's right. He got in with a tackle too. Brylan Jordan for Bethel, a 45-yard pick 6 to open the scoring. He had 4 tackles on the night as well. But again, keep Bethel in mind. Just remember that. We said it right here on College Football this week. McPherson, 33. Bethel, the Thresher version, 7. McPherson goes to 2-0. The Bethel Threshers 0-2. Jaleel Brown with a 72-yard touchdown reception from Ryan Markarian At the 12:53 mark to open the scoring, Ryan Markarian, 22 of 40 passing for 290 passing yards, 2 touchdowns through 2 picks as well. Jaleel Brown had 16 carries for 112 yards and a rushing touchdown, 2 catches for 79 yards and a receiving touchdown. And for Bethel, Byron Reese, 16 of 37 passing, 262 yards. He did throw a touchdown, but had 2 picks to his credit as well. LaGrange, Division III, LaGrange, 36.14 points. David Hines was 19 of 38 passing for 172 yards. He didn't throw any touchdowns. He did throw 2 that were caught by players in another jersey. 14 carries and had 1 rushing touchdown. We move along. Olivet Nazarene. Coach Mitchell's team is now 2-0, 46-13 in the Crusaders season opener. It was whiteout in Bourbonnais. And Christian Dew Reed, all he did was complete all of his passes, 7 for 7 for 170 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. He also had 1 carry. It went for 1 yard. That was all he needed. That was a touchdown. Brandon Jackson, 2 carries for 90 yards, both of them for touchdowns. A big night for Olivet Nazarene. And Jalen Pettis had 7 tackles, 2 fumble recoveries, including a 19-yard scoop and score. So a big night for the defense as well. For Madonna, Nathan Patterson, the freshman, the hometown boy from Livonia Patterson High School. He got the start, 15 for 33 through the air, 182 passing yards, a touchdown, but he threw 2 picks as well, had a rushing touchdown to his credit too. The Tigers with a 46-13 win over the Crusaders. We are starting to be in the home stretch now. We're in the home stretch now on the night, and we will get to the top 5 performances in just a moment after I let you know about a few more games, and one of them was a Dakota State win. The Trojans go to 1-1 in the Dakota State version of the Ag Bowl, 10th edition of that. Dakota State now 7-3 all-time, 37-7 over Nebraska Wesleyan. Trey Heddick is still recovering from last season. We thought he might be back a little bit earlier in the year. In the meantime, Rayshawn Eaton earned the job as QB1, and he was 13 for 18 for 197 passing on the night, 2 touchdowns. He also had 2 rushing touchdowns with 15 carries for 66 yards. Cole Paulson, 6 tackles, half of a tackle for loss, and a 60-yard fumble recovery for a touchdown. So another scoop and score there. Dakota State now 1-1 on the year. Missouri Baptist wins its season opener, 38-35 over St. Ambrose. The Fighting Beasts fall to 0-2. Tough loss in this one for Missouri Baptist. Jacob Jones, the D1 transfer from South Alabama, who also spent time at D1 Grambling as well, makes his debut for the Spartans. 26 of 43 passing, 275 yards through 1 touchdown. Also had 14 carries for 60 yards and a pair of rushing touchdowns too. Jalon Williamson, 9 tackles on the night for the Spartans, had an interception and took that back for 65 yards. For St. Ambrose, Alec Ponder still having a solid season, even though his team is 0-2. He was 24 for 43 passing, 353 passing yards through 2 touchdowns, but unfortunately for the Bees threw 2 picks as well. Concordia and the Bulldogs go to 1-0 on the year with a win over Doane as the Tigers now fall to 0-2. I have to love this quote from Coach Patrick Daberco, and this put out on social media. Love Jake Nabel, one of the best in the business in NAIA SIDs, and I would say one of the best in the business anyway around. His stories are fantastic. You really should take the time to read Concordia Athletics Sports Stories with Jake Nabel there. He quoted Coach Daberco as saying, anytime you can beat a rival school in conference, at home, under the lights, in front of a full stadium, and with 70-degree weather, I don't think it gets better than that. And I think he could be right. Gideon Stark, 24-43 passing, 278, 2 touchdowns through 2 picks as well. Concordia's Carlos Collazo, 28 carries for 95 rushing yards. He had 3 into the end zone for the score. And Adam Van Cleve had a receiving touchdown as well, 13 catches, 173 yards for him. For Doane, Sam Hartman, 30 of 48 passing for 201 yards on the night, had a touchdown as well. Southwestern, the Mound Builders, are 2-0 and definitely staking their claim in the KCAC against a very tough Tabor team. And we did get a shout out, I believe, a little bit earlier on the night for the Jays. Let's see right there. Was that right? Yeah. Shout out a little bit earlier on the night from Derek Smith. Let's go Jays. The Jays come up just a little bit short in this one, 28-21 to Southwestern. Combined for 7 turnovers between these two teams, and they were coming through the air. Well, 6 interceptions, 1 fumble. All of the touchdowns, though, came through the air. These are two teams that were not afraid to throw the ball on Saturday. For Southwestern, Jamie Odom, 21 of 32, 317 passing yards. He had 4 passing touchdowns, but he also had 3 interceptions. He was countered by Ahmad Bailey for Tabor, 24 of 44 for 230 passing. He had 3 passing touchdowns, but countered all of them with 3 interceptions as well. So again, 7 turnovers were in the afternoon for these two teams. It was a tight contest, coming up a little bit short for the Blue Jays there, as the Mound Builders are now 2-0. Texas College at Arkansas Baptist, and I have tried to find word from Little Rock on this game. If you know anything about this game in the chat or in the comments, please let me know, because I'd love to find out what happened in this game. Have no score and no information. Both teams were 0-1 coming in. OUAZ at home taking on Wayland Baptist. The Riley Murphy era starts with a W. 49-7 the Spirit. Luke Giron, 19 of 29 passing for 264 passing yards, 3 touchdowns. He was 13 carries for 70 yards as well. Marquise Reese, transfer from St. Mary of the Woods, and get to know that name because it is a sprint football program now, but in 2026, it's going to be a full-fledged NAIA football. Again, Reese transferring in from St. Mary of the Woods, 2 catches for 70 yards. One of those was for a touchdown. And for Wayland Baptist, Donovan Henry had 10 tackles. Division II, Fort Lewis, 58. Arizona Christian, 10. Josh Bell started at quarterback for Arizona Christian. His first start. Numbers he'd like to improve upon, 8 for 14 passing for just 32 yards, through a couple of picks as well. Ty Cole with the lone touchdown for the Firestorm, 12 carries for 68 yards. He did have a rushing touchdown. So we move to the point of college football this week, as we have just crossed the 1 hour mark. Thank you for watching. If you're still watching live, that's fantastic. If you're watching this in the replay, it's always you're a trooper. Let's see if we can get up the graphic there for our top 5 performances for the week. And it looks a little bit like this. Our top 5 performances as we saw them here on Midwest Sports Net. We're going to give the first one to Christian Dew Reed. 4 touchdowns he was responsible for on the night. Again, his numbers, 7 for 7 through the air. Now, Olivet Nazarene defeated Madonna 46-13. So Coach Mitchell really didn't need Christian Dew Reed that much, and yet while he was in there, he simply took care of business. He was 7 for 7 passing, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. He had 1 rush on the night, carried the ball 1 time, carried it for 1 yard for 1 score. He accounted for 4 touchdowns. He is one of our top 5 performers on the weekend. Another top 5 performer, how about this? It's going to be Eric Williams. 2nd week in a row that Evangel has been represented by Eric Williams in our top 5 performances. 23 carries for 163 yards. He accounted for 4 touchdowns with 3 rushing touchdowns and a receiving touchdown. And if you're a part of a new school record in rushing, then we definitely wanted to get you out there as well. So shout out to Eric Williams. How about Graceland's CJ Brooks? 67% passing on the night, 12 of 18, just shy of the 200-yard mark, but he had 5 touchdowns thrown, no interceptions. Now, he did have a pretty solid receiver in Monroe, but they didn't need Monroe all night. He was able to spread the wealth there. 5 touchdowns on the night for C.J. Brooks, the Bethune-Cookman transfer, one of our top 5 performers tonight. Hey, Roger, thank you for watching. It has been a fun football weekend. Dort, and we're going to give this one to Noah Strickfadden. 12 of 19 passing, 3 touchdowns thrown, no interceptions, also had a rushing touchdown. He was responsible for putting Dort up 45-0 at the half, and also responsible for 4 touchdowns himself. And let's see, one more. How about this one? Montana Western's Michael Palandri, 28 of 34 for 386 yards. That was the 2nd high number on the week. He did it throwing 82.3% completion percentage, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions, 6 carries, He had 2 rushing touchdowns as well. He accounted then, and we count them, for 6 touchdowns on the day. Michael Palandri, one of our top 5 performers on the week. So, wow, what a weekend. And Roger, I think you are exactly right there. Let's go ahead and put that one up there. A fun football weekend, and we hope that they are all like this as well. The big matchup with Grandview and Benedictine. And I have to say, Sean, thank you again very much for that. Sean's also very impressed with Grandview's offensive line. It is so legit. So a shout out to everyone for taking the time to watch tonight, and also taking the time to stop by the chat and let us know. Dave, I hope you enjoyed dinner with your family, and I hope that you get this shout out just a little bit later on. To Roger and to Sean and to Dave, as well as everyone else. Let me see here. Been on the road quite a long time today, and I'm just checking my eyesight. Need to make sure I can see. Charles, thank you for stopping by. Rudolph, Derek, as well. Thank you to all of you for stopping by tonight. Again, if you're still watching, thank you very much. We have a lot in store this week, and we are heading to Waxahachie, Texas for Midwest Sports Saturday. And this week, no Thursday Saturdays. It's just going to be a Saturday. That's right. Full day, as Nelson is hosting OUAZ in football. There's volleyball that's going on too. We'll be down there for all of that all day long. It's just going to be a fantastic day. I encourage you to definitely tune into the channel there. We'll be back with another live show on Thursday night as we preview week 3 in the NAIA, and our midweek show goes back to Thursday nights, where it will stay for, well, let's just say the foreseeable future. You never know when some of these things are going to change, so that's going to stay there for right now. I don't know why I had the headset in all the way through. I got through talking to Tom a long time ago. Shout out to Tom Kautz for being on the broadcast with us tonight. But we really appreciate him. And to all of you, friends of the channel, you are this community, and our community here at Midwest Sportsnet is growing. And I encourage you, if you haven't already subscribed, please take the time to do that. You can join the channel. You can become a member as well. And we just want to get to visit with you, and we want to talk about small college sports throughout the Midwest and beyond. I will also give a shout out to Jolie McWilliams, my production assistant for the weekend, and she had a great time. She just enjoyed being along. And a shout out to Mrs. Midwest Sportsnet, because I couldn't do any of this without her. So to all of you, thank you for watching tonight. College football this week, it's been a blast. There we go. There are your top 5 performers, and we're looking forward to one more week. Thanks for watching. We have a lot more and some new additions on our College Football This Week Thursday show, so tune in for that. But in the meantime, thank you very much for watching. I'm Joey McWilliams. God bless you. You guys have a great week.